I'm working on it, sir. I'm having some trouble with her.
Trouble? What do you mean?
I think he's got her on his back.
Help me.
Is this how you usually move bodies?
Help me.
It's an old embalming trick.
When we think of 1980s horror movies, the classics always come up. The Evil Dead, the Blob remake, Return of the Living Dead. But the decade was filled with hidden gems, forgotten zombie movies and VHS curiosities that slipped past most audiences. One of the strangest and most overlooked is Nightlife.
Nightlife. There's good reason to be afraid of the dark.
Also known on UK video shelves as Grave Misdemeanors. Released in 1989, it's a bizarre blend of teen high school comedy and zombie horror. At its core, the film asks a simple but unforgettable question. What if the bullies from your teenage years refused to stay dead? We're digging into this underrated 80s horror film to uncover why it deserves cult classic status, how it turned bullying into literal horror, and why it became a lost VHS horror gem.
What happened? They moved. Oh, come on, Archie!
To understand why Nightlife vanished, we have to look at where horror stood in 1989. The 80s horror boom was winding down, slasher movies like Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street had dominated the first half of the decade, but by the late 80s, audiences were getting tired of endless sequels. The zombie genre, meanwhile, was being stretched into new directions. Romero's Day of the Dead had been grim and apocalyptic, while Return of the Living Dead turned zombies into punk icons with a cult following. Nightlife offered something different, a horror comedy set in high school, where the monsters weren't just flesh-eating ghouls, they were the same jocks and cheerleaders who tormented our teenage protagonist while alive.
I know, I'm alive.
Ah, yes, but by whose definition?
Penthouses.
The setup is simple. Archie Melville, the classic 80s horror outsider, works at his uncle's funeral home and faces daily humiliation from his peers. When those same bullies die in a car crash and rise again as zombies, Archie must face his worst nightmare: high school cruelty that refuses to stay buried. It's part John Hughes teen movie, part underrated zombie flick, and completely unique in the 80s horror landscape.
You know, you're pretty hot, Charlie. I like a woman who knows how to drive the big rigs.
Leave her alone.
I have no girl, I have no car, I have no future.
What makes Nightlife more than just a zombie movie is its metaphor. The entire film is about bullying and how terrifying that experience can feel when you're a teenager.
They all hate me.
The first half plays like a dark teen comedy, exaggerating how relentless Archie's tormentors are. They humiliate him, harass him, and make school life a waking nightmare. Then when they return as zombies, their cruelty becomes unstoppable. The undead bullies act as a metaphor for trauma, how abuse and cruelty linger long after the moment has passed. Even in death, Archie's classmates refuse to let him live in peace. Their zombified return is symbolic of memories and pain that just won't stay buried. Bullying feels endless, and in Nightlife, it literally is. Teen films from Revenge of the Nerds to Heathers explored the cruelty of high school hierarchies, and Nightlife fits into that tradition, but filtered through gory horror comedy.
Oh, don't.
Ever seen anyone do that before, Archie? The head is completely unplugged. Only the skin is holding it on.
This taps into the same anxieties that films like Carrie and Christine explored. In those movies, adolescent fears are given monstrous forms: a killer car, telekinesis, a bucket of blood. Nightlife uses zombies, transforming the jocks and cheerleaders into the ultimate horror archetype, enemies you can't reason with, can't escape, and can't defeat easily. Unlike most 80s horror movies, where teenagers are punished for partying or breaking rules, here the bullies die first, but instead of justice, their deaths make things worse. It's a bleak, almost nihilistic vision of adolescence, the nightmare that cruelty never dies.
Come on, let's go!
That's why this forgotten 80s horror movie deserves a second look. It's more than campy schlock. It's an allegory for teenage trauma, wrapped in the splatter and absurdity of a zombie comedy. So if Nightlife is such an underrated zombie film, why isn't it remembered alongside other cult 80s horror movies? The first reason is timing. Released in 1989, it came at the very end of the decade when horror audiences were shifting tastes. Self-aware horror was about to emerge in the 90s, with Buffy the Vampire Slayer and eventually Scream. But it also came too late to ride the zombie wave of the early 80s. Second, the film suffered from poor distribution. With two different titles, Grave Misdemeanors and Nightlife, the film was difficult to market. Unlike other cult horror movies, it never got a major re-release on DVD or Blu-ray. Without constant circulation, a movie can vanish, even if it has all the ingredients for cult status.
Hey, my hair! Yeah. Play with your own hose.
And finally, tone plays a role. Nightlife is too comedic to be scary, but little too restrained to be as outrageous as Return of the Living Dead. It exists in a liminal space, a weird teen zombie film that doesn't fully belong to either camp. Sometimes, those are the films that slip through the cracks of horror history.
Bro, listen, I can't help.
Gotta get him dressed and shaved and made up.
Looking back now, Nightlife feels like the definition of a lost 80s horror gem. The zombie effects are surprisingly strong for its budget, the high school setting gives it a unique charm, and its central metaphor, bullying that never dies, still resonates today. In fact, you could argue that this movie foreshadows the later wave of horror comedies that merge teen angst with monsters, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Idle Hands, or even Shaun of the Dead and Jennifer's Body, which mined similar territory of youth, comedy, and the undead. And while it may never reach the heights of Romero or Dan O'Bannon, it absolutely deserves recognition as one of the most underrated zombie movies of the 1980s. Horror wasn't just gore and schlock, it was also experimentation, metaphor, and creativity in unlikely places. Maybe the real grave misdemeanor is that this film, a smart and scrappy teen zombie horror, has been left behind.
I'm cold.